Last Friday.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Yeah, thanks to you too.
And,
That's great.
yeah.
So, in most cases,
Today I got a message on the phone.
You always did.
You know, I had such a good time. Now I got all kinds of time. He was telling me that, now I see.
Consider yourself
that's on for 3 weeks. And then they start racing.
And he says, people said, you know, but every time, when you kind of say, well,
You might as well do it all. I wasn't dancing on our.
Fun.
No. Exotic stories. I don't have any good stories.
This is sweet.
Those waxy boots are really nice.
I get home today and he says, you don't have good time. He says, let's do that again. He says, let's do it. And I'm like, we just did it Friday. I have one.
So that's probably why.
Well, he told me, so she and I, the rest of them later passed away.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. We did. Daryl. How are you? Good to see you.
And we chatted
He's
about
my side man too.
I got a horrible line.
You gave me some wishes. You taught me,
Everybody has their play.
you taught me to do it.
Yeah, totally.
By 79,
Yeah,
I was vice president.
Oh, that's good.
I was the
City
first
playbook.
female president of an organization.
So cool.
Are we ready?
Prince won't make it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
So did you say a question here?
yes, I gave it to Faye.
Do they want to do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
and Faye was looking at one boat, I
Ready?
planned
Okay.
and if one works.
Well, good evening, everyone. We'll have 6 o'clock. And welcome to the council meeting this evening. Well, first off, we'll have Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, everyone's here except for Brandon. He had a prior engagement this evening. Have a motion to adopt the agenda for this evening?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
Did we need to move one from new business to old? Is that what it was?
I had the change of, the chamber membership is actually on the agenda says Lakes, and it should read, Falls
Falls.
Chamber.
Okay,
The consent agenda is correct,
okay.
the agenda is not,
So new business number 4
yes.
should read Falls Chamber membership.
Okay,
Was there a note here about the first item in old business, the community collaborative program, to postpone discussion on that for a later date? Did I see that?
Yeah, I think we can talk about that one.
yeah, I was just figured we'd talk about it when we got to it. Anything else, anybody?
No.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Adoption of the consent agenda. Any other motion?
I'll make a motion that we open discussion on the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay. Discussion then?
Yeah, everything looked good. I just wanted to refer to email that we got from Michelle regarding some procurements from the fire department that appear to be over and above what was authorized for staff to do. And I just want to make sure that we follow up with that. And I guess I'd ask the liaison, Troy, Councilmember Anderson, if you could follow up with Jake on that. This has happened before. I just want to make sure that all our staff are aware of our purchasing policies and authority levels. And I believe they're at a $1,500. Does that sound correct? $1,500, not to exceed. I think we raised that from 1,000 earlier in the year. So other than that, I just wanted to make sure that got followed up on.
And I can respond to that. That has been followed up on. I got a hold of Jake last week, I think. Heard back from him Monday, and I do see that there are already communications going back and forth between the treasurer and the fire department and the assistant chief as far as where those invoices were. Was there confusion on them? And then clarification too on what budget amount it actually was. I was under the understanding that it was 10,000, which if the charges were as they were recorded or stated, that would be 10,000 over. So they're working that out. So.
Good, thank you. Other than that, I didn't have any questions or comments.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Can I have, did we have a second on
We had a second.
Okay. Then let's take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We have a public forum. Is there any public forum? Does anybody want to have any public forum? If not, we'll move on. Okay, first item to cover is municipal canvassing board and the election that was on November 5th. We had the election for mayor and 2 council members. Brandon Weiberg was voted in again for mayor, and Carol Schumann and Robert Bear are the 2 new council members, and they'll be starting after the first of the year.
Would you like to read all of the votes?
Oh, sure.
Please.
I'll make a motion that we open discussion on the canvassing board.
Sure.
I'll second.
Okay. Who wants to go first?
Well, I can go first. Congratulations to the winners. And I really wanted to say thanks to all 4 candidates, along with Brandon, for running. It's not easy sometimes. I know you dip into your own pockets to do it, and just appreciate the effort and dedication to serve. So thank you. Thank you and congratulations.
Yes, okay, well, I would like to congratulate both the new members of the council, elected new members of the council, and whoever fills this seat. I know you find it as comfortable as I have felt it over the last 20 years. And I'm glad to see that more people have stepped up this time around to help the city out and to, volunteer their time to make this a great city that it is. So congratulations, and thank you for your time.
Sure, yeah, congratulations. Actually, like Councilmember Brooks said, to all the members for stepping up and going through the process. I do want to make sure that, and I'm sure they are, but the totals that we have, just clarification, these are the totals that include both the early voting and the election night, correct? So everybody's aware of that it's all there. And as, like I said, congratulations. I wish both of you the best of luck. I guess I differ from Larry a little bit that, yeah, the seat's comfortable most of the time. Sometimes it's not. And I will, I'll leave it at that, but.
Thanks, Rick. Yeah, myself, thank you very much for running and congratulations. Going to be very good additions to the council. So thank you.
Lee, I should probably modify or adjust the motion to read, I made a motion to approve Resolution 24-11-00, City of Taylors Falls, County of Chisago, State of Minnesota, resolution to certify results of the November 5th, 2024 general election.
Okay.
And if you'll read all the results, Lee, that would
Okay.
be great.
Brandon Weber for mayor, 430 votes, write-ins 15. For council, Carol Schumann, 289 votes. Robert Baird, 222 votes. Molly Irish, 184 votes. John Denny, 162 votes. And write-ins 5. Now, any more discussion? Okay.
Yes, just thank you to staff and all the
Yes.
people who worked here
Oh,
on the
yeah.
election too. I'm sure it was a busy day. I was up here and a lot of people were milling around. It appeared everything went very well. And this was the first general election that staff has had. We got a little practice run with the primaries,
Yeah, thank God.
but many, many things.
Yeah, had wonderful volunteers with our election judges, was confident in all of their abilities, so that was the biggest hurdle, and we could move forward easily, so yes, I thank them.
I will second that as well. Thank you to the staff and to the volunteers for stepping up. It did run very smoothly from what I can tell, so thank you again.
Same here. Thank you, everyone. Very, very good job that day. We ready to vote?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to old business. Community Collaborative Program. It was originally going to be to approve a contract, so I think we'll have some discussion and talk about what we're going to have a motion to, or do we just want to talk about tabling it, or?
I'll make the motion to open discussion.
Okay.
On Community Collaborative Program.
I'll second.
I'll second.
We've had a letter from,
Maybe Peter or Diane from the EDC would like to talk about that? or-
oh, yeah,
I do.
Yeah, am I able, should I come sit up front or?
sure,
Yes,
sure.
please.
Just to explain what your ideas are and what's going on.
Yeah, I think, before I read the contract, I'm just struggling to understand what is substantially different than what the EDC is meant to do. The EDC, it says, shall study and recommend policies and actions to the city council concerning economic and community development, housing and transportation, parks and recreation, and any other matter which aids the economic well-being of the city. And so I would like more time to speak with Todd, as that's what we're going to do next week after our business owners meeting to hear from him and understand what's different than what we are currently doing. And I think like, as us as the EDC, we're doing this with our own time. We are community members who are engaged in the community and are wanting to do this. So, I mean, that's where I would just ask that we have more time to meet with him and just, I want to understand if there is a substantive difference between what he is proposing and what we're doing. I'm all for that. However, I think if we have overlap, this is a commission that's been around for over 2 decades, has seen results. It's the Sweet Sugar Trail, it's the underpass, it's the Riverwalk. We have plans to do a Riverwalk Phase 2. We have an opportunity for funding with that, and we have other plans that we're working on. We just set up our guiding principles. So reading through the contract, I was just feeling like there was a lot of overlap with what we would do, and I think it would be more beneficial if there is too much redundancy to just save that money for the taxpayer and allow us to continue this work that we've been doing.
Okay.
You had me at taxpayer. It was at the end. That's one of the reasons why I think we should wait. I will say, I think, from what I've heard, was it Todd?
Todd Streeter.
Todd Streeter, yeah. I did hear his presentation. I do like his strategy. I think it's really good because it's grassroots based and it starts with the people. And I think you make a good point that if it's going to start with the people, then maybe we want to make sure everybody gets heard. So.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with that. I also think one thing my dad learned over a long time of working here is that find the money and people will come, and I think that's the way my dad's gone. And so I don't think our problem is not engaging the grassroots community. I do think it's funding, as we're a small town with a small commercial base, as we all know. So I think our problem isn't engaging with the community. I think we've actually done that fairly well over the years. I think it's actually finding funding, and if that's a part of it that he is willing to be a support in, I'm totally willing, and I think that's something that we are able to do in our own time, and again, save money.
Well, I agree with you, and I have also seen the presentation, and it's a grand vision. And he's worked with bigger cities than ours, much bigger cities, and we do have our own grand vision for our city, and I feel like we're moving forward with that now too. So I don't really think that this is something we need to concern ourselves with at this point. And to your point, very well said, Peter. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say just when you meet with Todd, keep an open mind on what he may be able to help us with. I mean, part of it is just because you're all volunteers. And most people have day jobs, or a lot do. And depending on your time availability, expertise levels on the commission, it's really meant to augment, not replace the EDC. So I would just recommend keep that in mind, how if the entire thing could help you, if parts of it could help, or if none of it could help. I would say my recommendation would be that we table it until our next council meeting and have the EDC give us a recommendation once they've had a chance to meet with Todd and met as a group and formulate a recommendation to the council then. And I believe our next council meeting, are we going to have another one in November, do you think?
Nothing's
Yes.
been.
I see a nod of the head, yes.
Okay.
So fourth Monday of
That would be the 5th.
would that be enough time for you to get together, or would you prefer December?
We have a meeting the 20th. We meet with them.
So it'd be the following Monday then?
Yep.
The 25th?
Yeah, we meet with them next Wednesday.
Well, I guess it would depend on how much time we have next Wednesday to be, meet as a commission, or if we need to call a special, or if we could wait once the first December meeting.
We have to approve, when will we approve the budget?
Yeah, that's a special truth and taxation meeting.
comes
Yes,
first, so
before that.
that would be the first December council meeting.
So the first meeting in December would be the 9th.
Mhm.
We could say the 9th too, that would give you more time.
If that's a possibility, I
Yeah.
do think that would be helpful to give us more time.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Okay,
Let's plan on having you back here on the 9th then.
okay.
perfect. Thank you.
If I can, I guess at this point, on the ninth, are we talking about approving the contract?
No,
I'm
looking
looking
at
at
a
it still.
recommendation.
Okay.
I guess if they recommend moving forward, we could approve.
Yeah, and I guess I think that's why I want to bring up the other part of my argument as far as the taxpayers go. And let me get this straight, because we'll be talking finances a couple times tonight. Right now, our budget is at an increase of 9.4 or 12% on the taxpayers. How much are taxes going up as the way the budget stands right now?
So Michelle and I did a little tweaking. We put in some revenue numbers that we hadn't been budgeting before, but we can be fairly assured that they will be there.
Okay,
So right now, with the revisions that we've made, the overall property tax increase is 6.23%.
okay. And can I ask what changed in there? We still,
You may, yeah.
okay.
May,
And I won't drag this on too long, but I'm just trying to make an additional point here.
Good question. So the other state aid that we get from the SCAP, like Small City something program, I don't remember the exact what the acronym is. That's $23,950, and I think we had it in the budget somewhere. It was not in the right line item, and we only had budgeted $14,000. So that's about almost a $10,000 variance right there to the positive.
Okay.
Community center use fees, we've been under budgeting that the last couple of years. So increase that from 1,000 to 3,200. And the interest earnings, we've been budgeting 1,500 and the run rates are running at about 3,000.
Can I have that last one again? The,
Interest earnings
okay,
from 1,500 to 3,000.
okay.
And then the last one, something we have not been budgeting for, is the revenue we get from the solar farms. And we look back and last couple of years, it's actually called unallocated utility revenue. And that was not budgeted for at all. And we've budgeted $6,000.
So where was it going, like, for the solar farm revenue? Where was it going before? Where did you find it?
Michelle, I asked her about it and had been booking it to this account,
Okay.
but it was never budgeted for.
Okay.
So we think we're definitely more accurately budgeting our various revenue sources. And as a result of those increases, it dropped our general property tax number down.
Sure, good.
So,
Thank you, both you and Rachel, and anybody who did all this work on this. I really appreciate that. And we are looking at, for this community collaborative program, was it 13? Is there total?
13,500, I think.
13,500.
It was budgeted under additional levy, I believe. Where was it?
13,250.
13,250, okay. And that 13,250 is in the budget right now.
It is, it's
Okay.
Under the special projects fund, so that would be an additional levy amount of $13,250.
Thank you.
At the December 9th meeting, we will have to have budget ready for approval, so just keep that in mind. If, I don't know if that's, we can manage that with approval of budget and the contract and the recommendation.
And the other major change that is on our the current version, if you will, of the final budget, was at our last budget meeting, there was a consensus to drop the capital fund allocation from 70 to 50,000.
Yes, right.
So that's included in this as well.
Okay.
And we were at 6.23%.
Correct.
Good, thank you. That was all I wanted to make.
Great. Thanks, Tim.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we'll go with you guys meeting with Mr. Streeter, and you guys can talk about it and figure out what's going on there, and then we'll look forward to having you back on the 9th, right?
Right. So we should amend the
If
motion.
possible, earlier.
Well,
But-
I have a question. If the money, this is gonna, it's probably out there, but can the money be allocated, and what happens if it's not spent, or if it's spent the following year, or
It'll,
can you reallocate it?
because this is a separate fund, it can just sit there. It'll carry over.
It can just sit there? Okay,
Yeah.
that's good to know, too.
So, yeah, we've allocated it, so it's
Okay.
there, so.
Yeah, it just feels like a timing thing.
Oh,
We need
sure,
more time, we need
sure,
to, you know, we're just really new,
right.
you know, we're newly joined group, and so, you know, we've been working a lot on getting things going, so we just need a little more time,
Yeah,
and we'd like to save the city money,
sure,
so,
that's greatly appreciated.
okay.
So amend the motion to include tabling this item until the December 9th.
And I will second that.
Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you. Next up on agenda is 2025 staff health benefit approval.
I'll make a motion that we approve the staff health benefit as discussed previously.
I guess I'd like a little more discussion on that, if we could. I'll make a motion, we open discussion on it
Okay.
before, prior to approval. Is there a second, or?
I'll second, okay.
Okay.
So, and I guess back to the previous, right now, we're at 6.23% an increase, and that is with the city paying 100% of the health benefits, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Also includes a 3% cost of living, which we've not discussed yet either.
3% COLA is correct, okay. Well, the only thing I want to thank everybody who attended the meeting on the 30th of October. It was one of the best meetings I've ever been a part of. Just because everybody was open, we had the employees here, they were all able to express their opinion. And some of them admitted that it was a difficult conversation to have because they're talking about their own benefits and their own pay. And as much as I appreciate the opportunity to really do some soul searching and look into everything, it was a difficult meeting for me as well. Because as I explained, we were in a difficult position. We have great employees, and we have, for the most part, competitive wages. And this discussion was to get the health benefits included at 100% and make those competitive as well. I explained that as much as I certainly want our employees to be happy and healthy and have the coverage they need and be competitive with other cities in the area, I also have a responsibility to the taxpayers, who, with this, is an increase of $40,000, I believe, is where we're at, close to that.
Depending on which direction we go.
As far as what percentage?
Percentage and who would be included in our group, whether it be full-time or full-time and part-time staff.
Okay. Then that's a ballpark, and I apologize if that's not exactly correct. My point at that time is that I have a responsibility to the city staff, and I also have a responsibility to the taxpayers and people that voted for me to watch out for their money. I have a fiscal responsibility to do that. So at that time and at that meeting, I asked for discussion on 75% and 50% as well. So the city would pay 75%, the city would pay 50%. Because of all the hard work we did at that meeting, and all the very hard work that Tim and Michelle have done on the budget, these numbers look much better. And I can say that I would be fully behind any health insurance benefits that if the city paid 50 or even 75%. Right now, I'm going to defer to my responsibilities to the taxpayers, and at this point, I wouldn't be able to approve 100% where the city pays 100% of benefits, but I could certainly be in favor of 50 or 75. And that was all I wanted to say.
Okay. So if I could go next.
Yep.
I have a recommendation after having talked with the staff and some folks outside our community, insurance folks and others, municipalities. Here's what I would propose. That we amend the personnel policy manual to include the provision of health care insurance. Full-time employees, 40 hours a week, are eligible for health insurance beginning the first of the month following their date of hire or as soon as practicable. The city will cover 100% of the premium for single coverage. So having this as our policy would, Michelle would not be eligible for health care insurance paid or through the city. And it would drop our costs about $8,000. Our total expenditure for health insurance for our staff for 2025 would be approximately $33,300.
Michelle has coverage through her spouse.
She does.
Okay. Well, I would agree with that. That seems fair. Also, it was mentioned at the last meeting that staff has also volunteered to contribute to the cost of the insurance with cleaning, doing their own cleaning in the buildings around town. So the city buildings. I just want to make that mention. But I agree with what you just put in, Tim, and with paying 100%.
Okay. And,
If I could just
Yep.
add one other thing to what Larry said. Yep. Another thing we're doing to try to save some money is having our Public Works Department actually do some tracking of their time. I'm not sure where this was brought up before, so if you haven't heard about it, evidently our work comp that we're paying on our Public Works staff right now is at the highest level right now, because unless you document what you're doing, they consider everything street work, which is the highest premium charge. So if we can actually get that work done, our premiums should fall pretty dramatically for our Public Works staff. So that's another thing we're doing to try to save some money that the staff are helping us with.
great. I'd go along with Larry and Tim on this. I feel that staff is doing a great job. We should support their insurance for them.
And if this passes, then how many employees will we be covering with the city paying 100%? 3.
It would be Sherry, Elizabeth, and Kevin.
And every hire after that by policy would be 100% coverage.
If they were
There's
full-time.
gonna be no way to change that, right, every full-time.
We can change the policy whenever we want. Obviously, we'd have to be considerate of the impact, but
Yeah, that would be penalizing the new employee or the position, you know, to just change it after you've instituted it. Correct? That would be a punitive.
Well-
I mean, it would be seen as a punitive act.
yeah, if they're a full-time employee, there would be no impact,
Right.
no negative impact. Actually, if we ever changed it, it would be, do we want to include part-time staff?
So that would,
Then we could reduce
right.
the number of hours to 30 or whatever we saw fit. But right now,
Okay.
what I'm proposing is only for our full-time staff.
Which we learned last time, if any of the full-time staff have a qualifying waiver, then we can be waived without it affecting coverage for the other employees. So, I think most of you are aware of my situation is kind of in the air, so I have potential to have a waiver, but we don't know yet. So it could be one employee less right now, but always plan long-term as if you're gonna, as if everybody's gonna take it.
Right. Yeah.
But, I'll definitely, if I have an opportunity to hop on someone else's insurance, then I will to save the city money.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Okay, so need to change the motion, or,
I'm gonna reread,
okay,
so Sherry can document it.
okay,
So we would amend the personnel policy manual to include provision of healthcare insurance. And it would, the way I read it, it would be section 700.14. Health insurance, full-time employees, per parenthetical 40 hours per week, are eligible for health insurance beginning in the first day of the month following their date of hire, parentheses, or as soon as practicable. And the reason I put that in there is if you have somebody, if we had a new employee who started on the 28th of the month, for example, we couldn't process the paperwork fast enough to get them on the first of the month. I'm sure there's a prorated period we can do it for, but we just work with the agent, health insurance agent on situations like that. Or even on the 15th of the month might be tight too. So after that, close parentheses, the city will cover 100% of the premium for single coverage.
And before that motion is made, I just, one more comment. I do want to thank the city staff for all the work they've done. They have worked really hard at this. And I want to thank the council because that meeting was really good. All of us kind of rolled up our sleeves and looked at the budget and go, okay, where else can we do? Where else can we do to make this work? So it was a good thing. And as you can see, we're already down a lot further than we were as far as our budget goes. So I want to appreciate it. The direction is going, it's going in the right direction. We're more conscious of what we're doing. So.
all right. Good. Have a second?
Second?
Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Passes. Right, next item on the agenda is adopt short-term rental licensing ordinance. Elizabeth.
We've had a lot of discussions on this over the last year, so I'll try to make it quick since we have a lot on the agenda today. When we adopted the zoning ordinance, we kind of put in all the necessary short-term rental
changes. So essentially, we have the use of short-term rentals as a conditional use in certain zoning districts. The proposal we have here today is to keep the conditional use process. We've had discussions on that, and essentially, Planning Commission was in support of giving the neighbors the opportunity to come in and speak, because a conditional use permit requires a public hearing, and goes before council. And it really gives, council, and Planning Commission the opportunity to put conditions that are very, particular to that property, unique to that property. So that's the benefit of conditional use. And so we also have a licensing ordinance proposed in addition to the conditional use permit, kind of like we did with the cannabis product retail establishment license. And there's been many discussions around that, whether to go that route or not. And I think the driving factor there is that a licensing ordinance outside of the zoning ordinance applies to all short-term rentals, both old and new, to where a CUP only process, those new regulations would only be applicable to any new applicants for short-term rentals. So I know we've had deep conversations about that. Planning Commission's been working on it for about a year with a lot of comment from the residents. We had a public hearing as required, and heard a lot of input from the stakeholders, the short-term rental operators themselves. We then hosted another open workshop, kind of stakeholder meeting, and we discussed it again. Went to council, we discussed it some more, and I think we finally come to a conclusion. So I have, if you look at the cover page on the consent agenda, I have 4 motions, essentially adopting a short-term rental ordinance, a resolution for a publication summary of the ordinance, the fee schedule, and to require, to allow all of the existing short-term rental CUP holders and legal non-conforming operators the opportunity to have a license first, without charging them for that initial fee. So I'm here for any questions.
I have a question. In 2 instances on page 92 and 95, 92 is the chapter 3 short-term rentals, which I believe is the first motion. There is a reference, and I'm not sure if it's a note from staff or if it's to be included in the ordinance. At the bottom, it's yellow highlighted. This ordinance is effective upon publication passed by City Council on the 14th day of October 2024.
Yeah, so it should be 12th day of November 2024. So I did catch that too.
Okay.
After I printed this, but
And
yep.
then Exhibit B has the same, page 95.
Page 95. All right, yep, thank you.
Okay.
95. Oh, here it is. Thank you.
You done?
I'm done, yes.
Oh, so if we want to go through, I did attach the proposed ordinance. There were some highlighted changes. So from the last time we met, the city council could not make it to that stakeholder meeting. So I just took everybody's individual input, highlighted it, and I guess we should just discuss it and make sure we want to keep all those highlighted spots. So I guess I would start with page 88. License renewal. Here we go. Among the requirements for license renewal, the applicant for short-term rental licenses renewal must demonstrate that the license is active, is in active use, by which may be satisfied by providing writing documentation of at least And here's the key part that I want you guys to come up with a number. I spoke with the existing short-term rental operators to just kind of get a ballpark of what they're doing, and most of them are doing it as, the ones that I spoke to and got back to me are all doing them as like full-time short-term rentals, not occasional uses. So I put in there 16 rentals in the preceding 12 months, or 16 days available for short-term rentals between June 1st and October 31st, which is their primary busy season, starting the first full year of rental. So I did the or because you don't want to penalize people for not having business, essentially. If their bookings are there and it's just a slow year, I don't know, economic times or, you know, for some reason they're not getting the rentals, you don't want to have to revoke their license because they're not getting them. So, any discussion on that?
I'll just comment real quick. I'd like it a little higher, but 16 is a good number. I think I think it's shooting right down the middle. So I'm great with 16. I guess I'm just expressing my opinion. I was thinking more like 20, but.
Okay.
But 16 was a number that you came up with in discussion with the current short-term.
Yeah, I mean, they're very busy. It's a lot. So if you count, at least Friday, Saturday, and Sunday all summer long, and we're going by days. That's quite a few. So 16 was kind of banking on a slow summer. So if you wanted to go 2025, I don't think it'll make that big of a difference. You just don't want to make it too high in case then you run into the situation of, do we revoke their license because they didn't have it available enough? So.
Well, we'll start building a history, right?
Right.
Yeah, we can maybe change it over years once we have more data, because it is a requirement that they submit their rentals, so then we'll have more solid numbers to look at as well.
Any number, you're just
Yeah.
kind of picking it out of the sky anyway. So I think it looks good, and I like the way you've written it, and it's for the first full year, so that helps too. If somebody comes in after the high season, we don't expect them to rent 16 times, so I like it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with 16.
Looks good to me.
Right. So I'm just right in there, we're gonna keep 16 then?
Yep.
Okay. Page 89. Essentially saying that a license isn't necessarily transferable, but that if somebody's buying a property, they get first dibs at the license, they have 30 days to apply for a license from the closing date. Everybody okay with that language?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. E on page 89, use of events prohibited. I think the language that we have is really good for most. We have one down in Sydney's property, they're our largest short-term rental. I think they have 6 bedrooms, 5 or 6. And they said they don't usually host events there. And sometimes, like, when is it an event? So she said she would make sometimes an exception for some people, if there's, gosh, how many did she say? If there's 9 people renting, and then at the actual house, and then she would allow X amount of guests beyond that to gather in the backyard and have like a small little ceremony. So technically that's an event. It's kind of that our current draft would not allow that. And is that your intention? I think we drafted in here, didn't we? Additional daytime guests may be considered under special circumstances if approved in advance by council, to kind of loosen that up a little bit, and that's on page 90, H3 underlined. So just kind kind of wanted you guys to discuss that and see exactly what you wanted. If you wanted absolutely no events, I just wanted to bring to your attention that that would impact one of our existing short-term rental operators quite a bit.
How so? Because that's all they do there is have events?
Because they do technically host a small event once in a while. And
And
it's
it
also
actually-
something we could,
It actually states weddings.
yes,
So-
it does say wedding, so if you're having a wedding ceremony in the backyard,
And the building is not being used, right? Is it just for the event, or how is that property being utilized? Is it being utilized as a short-term rental, or is it a 3-hour event space?
both.
Oh, it is both,
I mean, yeah, I mean, you,
okay,
You book
You
it
have
as
a
a short-term
gathering.
rental.
you
okay,
know, kind of a non-traditional wedding,
yeah.
like small backyard gathering. She says she does get a few of those. So that's where I put an item H3. You know, maybe we could have those special circumstances go to council as kind of a compromise, or just take it out and say no events.
Well, I don't think it's certainly not my intent that a group of friends couldn't have a scrapbooking party
That's inside, yeah.
that's inside. We live next to the First Lutheran Church. So what immediately came to mind was, well, if somebody were having a small wedding in the backyard, the neighbors, you wouldn't want somebody cutting grass during the wedding. We don't do work like that outside when the church is having a funeral or a wedding, or even a regular church service. We just try to arrange our schedules to accommodate that. So there are a lot of other provisions in here that would not be allowable. Like, it still has to adhere to the noise ordinance,
Right.
the quiet time ordinance, parking, those kind of things. So I'm not hung up on a backyard wedding if it meets all the other requirements.
Mhm.
I don't know what the issue would be.
Well, probably
I think
the
we
main
start,
issue would be parking.
right, you start getting into the how many extra guests, and then
Right.
where are they parking? So I guess if they're still adhering, and that's where it's like, is it really a problem if they're still adhering to the parking requirements, if they're still adhering to the noise requirements?
If everybody's parked off street and they have 4 extra guests instead of 2,
Well, what about that? Use for events greater than +5 of, of those occupying the short-term rental or something like that. So prohibit it at a certain number greater than the occupancy of the building.
Because then you run into parking.
Well, yes,
But those parking are still,
yeah, but, if you did a number like 2, then,
up to 5 additional guests,
yeah.
provided all
I'm just
other,
throwing it out there,
Yeah.
but,
provided all other, sections of the ordinance are met. That could be something.
we don't want noisy, huge bachelor parties, if you will. We don't want a wedding in the backyard of 300 people. But I think there's reasonableness. It hasn't been an issue thus far, I assume, what they've been doing. We haven't had any complaints on the property. So it seems like the way they're managing it right now has been satisfactory.
And each property is unique, so that's where I kind of lean towards approved by council under special circumstances.
You mean come before the council and present their plan for approval?
So we know when the event's going on.
That's reasonable.
They're usually booked out well in advance.
and is that solely outdoor? I mean, is it always outdoor events? Not necessarily.
Just events.
Used for events, prohibited, okay.
Which is one of the main concerns
I
the
see.
residents
Okay.
with noise and
Oh,
parking.
okay.
I mean, because we have recently, I still don't know what kind of event it was, but it was definitely, a lot of cars parked in Unusual Hill. So they were hosting some sort of large gathering. So
It wasn't
I'm
overnight.
confused.
it was not overnight, but it was still a daytime nuisance. So,
Oh,
residents wanna avoid that.
And I would agree.
So kind of find that balance between having that not happen again, but kind of giving some flexibility to, and that's where properties are very different. So like, I haven't been over there, but I hear like Sydney's property is, you know, a little more it's more spacious, a little more accommodating for parking and like the backyard thing than, you know, other locations. So, I don't think there's a wrong answer, so whatever you guys think. And we can always change it later.
Well, I just think that the residents should know what the council has approved. If they see an event, you know, taking place and, you know, and it would be really important for the people to come to the council and let us know what they're gonna do, so we can actually give it a yay or a nay. Or should I say, you new members.
Yeah, I hate to go through and change a bunch of stuff at this point. We've done so much work on it. It looks, I think, as perfect as it can be. If we just add that if there's a special circumstance, they get approval by council, then we can weigh each one independently.
Certainly,
So
makes sense.
I'll keep our language that I have under H3 on page 9. So I will address that. Okay. What else do we have? There shall be a limit, okay, G1, page 90. There shall be a limit of 20 licenses issued within the city. That's just, you know, a critical number. Is there any changes, anybody would like to make to that?
No, not under F2 though, we had a change there.
F2. Which page?
The multiple family dwelling units of 5
Oh,
or more.
yep, you're right. Okay, so, the reason I changed that from 2 to 1 is because 1 still satisfies, one of the short-term, what is it, Timber Ridge, wanted to do 1 short-term rental in their apartment complex. We did want to limit apartment complexes so they don't turn into hotels. And we were gonna, maybe, we just threw out 2, they wanted at least 1. And I changed it to 1 because I consulted with Chisago County, who also has a licensing ordinance. And they only allow 1 short-term rental per parcel. Their definition of short-term rental could be improved, and that will probably change. But I did change it to 1 to be consistent with their ordinance as far as apartments go. So I would highly recommend keeping 1.
That looks good to me.
Anybody else?
No, that looks good.
Okay.
And the 20 licenses looks good
Okay.
from me as well.
Yep. Yes.
Let me see, there shall be a minimum of 100 feet. Okay, so this is something we kind of, I think, oversaw. This is 2B on page 90. We have this 100 feet between parcels, which everybody agrees with, except for in the rural countryside zoning district. But I think we forgot to consider how that would impact our downtown apartments. So we have a few buildings that have potential for apartments, which are dwelling units, which could be short-term rentals up top. Right now, we only have the Chisago house that's wants those 4 short-term rentals, or 3, however many they wanted up top. And with the Chisago house holding a license, as we have the current, you know, drafted, if, say, Juneberry across the street wanted a short-term rental, they would automatically not be eligible because the that 100-foot buffer, it's just because that downtown, district is more condensed, that 100 feet is, covers a lot more buildings. And I think part of the intent of that was to preserve the residential neighborhoods, but we actually would encourage, short-term rentals in the apartments above the downtown commercial zoning district, because that's where the tourists are. They're cruising downtown, they're going to Interstate Park, they're not interfering with the neighborhoods or anything like that. So it's a really good spot for short-term rentals. So I added section B, the properties addressed Bench Street between, so basically on Bench Street only, where their driveway comes off of Bench Street, because there's also houses that are adjacent to Bench Street, but their driveways are not on Bench Street, so it seems kind of clunky, but that's the best wording I can come up with. So the properties addressed Bench Street, maybe I should put a comma there, between First Street and Second Street, which have a business on the first level and dwelling units on the upper level. They're exempt from that 100-foot buffer, so that's my recommendation.
So really, in practicality, it would be Tangled Up in Blue, Romaines, Chisago House, the Juneberry Bridge building.
There's 4 apartments up there.
And there's a couple of houses, I think, that are businesses right now.
Yeah, so just kind of want to open that door for them.
I like
and
it.
actually
Yeah,
there's,
it makes sense.
I think the gentleman who's saying Tangled Up in Blue was interested in doing apartments up there, but they're probably far enough from Chisago House anyways. But is everybody okay with that addition?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Page 90, number 3. Anybody have anything on that?
Okay.
Good?
Yep.
Yes.
I think that's it. So then we're just ready for the motion.
Okay. Is it all right if I read the motions?
Yep, sure.
Sherry has a copy here for me. I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 24-10-00, an amendment adding section 360, short-term rentals, to the city code as ordinance number 2024-10-00.
I will second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And we should make a note in the minutes as well that there were 2 date changes that will be corrected. Both refer to the date the council approved it.
Right.
Being today. Keep going.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 24-10-01, summary publication of the short-term rental licensing ordinance number 2024-10-00.
I will second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That also had a date change on it in Exhibit B, just for minutes. All right, I'll make a motion to approve the addition of the short-term rental license fees to the City of Taylor's Falls fee schedule. Original short-term rental license at $650. Annual renewal of the short-term rental license at $100.
I will second.
All in favor, say aye.
Can I just, one discussion item before we move forward on that, just for the record. We're also recommending that we revisit the original license fee in concert with the revision of our fee schedule for conditional use permit fees. The recommendation is that we increase the conditional use permit fee that we charge to better align with the amount of work the staff has to put into it. And that would cover all conditional use permits. And then once that's done, we would lower this fee to, example, about $200. Because right now they're having to pay, they would have to pay $650 for a short-term rental license, and in addition to whatever the CUP fee is, which is woefully minimal, way out of line with what our true costs are. So just for reference purposes, at a future date, we'll make a recommendation to adjust this and the fee schedule.
Is there, just for the people, is there an estimated date, timeline?
Well, we can do it anytime,
Okay.
but usually at our organizational meeting in
Okay.
January,
January,
we
yeah.
review the fee schedule.
Right, that's good.
I mean,
So-
there's just gotta be somebody to put the time into the research of what it's supposed to actually be.
Right. And we can hunt and peck at it if we so choose as well. We don't have to do a total revision, but just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Can I make a comment about that? As a commercial realtor, I'm before cities all the time for conditional use permits. Conditional use permits typically will be charged based on how many hours of the zoning person's time is taken. And so it could be between $1,500 and $2,500, even for a simple conditional use permit, because it takes so much time of the zoning person. And so I would recommend that we would do something like that, or we keep track of the time that Elizabeth is putting in, or the rest of the staff, and charge them at something like $150 an hour. Because that is what most people in commerce are used to paying for a conditional use permit. And so they're used to it. And so we should be charging something commensurate with cities around the metro area. So I would recommend that.
Yeah, just a couple of things on that. Our fees aren't meant to make the city money, so they have to be commensurate with the amount of time and the true cost for the city. And Elizabeth and I sat down and did a little exercise. We walked through the process, planning commission meetings, council meetings, drafting the staff recommendations, how much time that takes. And I mean, it does depend on what the conditional use is. But in general, I think we came up with a pretty good idea of how much time staff puts into it.
Kind
At
of
this
a
point.
minimum ballpark. I don't know if we counted the actual planning commission meetings themselves, but.
It's hard because we have to have
And
those
each one is
anyway.
so different, and it depends on the conditional use permit, so like, short-term rentals, for example, now I've done a few of them, so I kind of have a template, and I just kind of, swap it out, so that takes less time now, but when you're doing it for the first time, it takes more time. There's a lot of different kinds of conditional use permits within the ordinance, so we probably should plan as if I'm doing one unique, like the cabinet shop, how many cabinet shops are we gonna have? That was unique.
And if I can, I just want to add on what Bob suggested there. If a high price will actually help deter the process, the CUP in general. So I mean, if part of our concern is the time we're spending on these CUPs, that's one of the benefits of a higher, a cost to doing that, is bringing down the amount of people who will do it.
On the flip
People
side,
will just do it no matter what, no matter how much it costs or what.
What do you mean? Like,
The
deter
license
people
fee.
from applying for CUPs?
Right. I mean, what are you talking about?
CUPs,
with
that's just about what uses that are allowed within each zoning district, within the ordinance.
Yeah, we're talking about the fee schedule, or the fee that would be charged.
Right,
Correct.
so within your zoning ordinance, you have all sorts of different, under every zoning district, there's, you either have permitted uses or conditional uses.
Right.
And it's not meant to be, these are bad uses, or like to deter
Oh.
any of them. You want them to go through that process, you just wanna, you go through the purpose of the process, which is to go through all of the CUP requirements, regulations, and to charge appropriately. You don't
Right.
wanna deter anything,
Right, but.
maybe you don't understand.
Well, maybe I don't. You want
No,
them,
I
you
don't,
want
I
them,
said.
you don't want them, you want them to go through the process, but you don't want city staff to go through the process.
No,
That's where I'm
it is
confused.
just a process that has to be gone through.
And it sounds
So
like it's long
we
and
want
drawn
them to-
out, it takes a lot of work,
We
it takes a
want-
lot of time.
We want them
Right.
to go through the process, we just want them to have to pay for that cost of the process.
I agree.
Okay. And just Troy, so you heard me right, I said maybe I don't understand. I didn't say maybe you don't
Oh, no,
understand. Okay.
That's fine.
That could come out
It
later
could-
on.
Both could be the case.
Okay, I think we're on the same page now, though.
Okay, that was all the comments I had.
All right,
Okay, so we need to vote.
On the third, or
The third one, yeah.
again, okay. I will second your previous motion.
okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, last but not least, I'll make a motion to require all active short-term rental CUP holders and legal, non-conforming short-term rental operators to apply for the short-term rental license by December 1, 2024. Existing operators may legally operate without a license through December 31, 2024. The initial licenses are valid January 1, 2025 through December 31, 2025. All other regulations within the short-term rental licensing ordinance are effective upon publication of this ordinance. Do I have a second?
I will second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great.
Thank you so much to
That was a lot of
staff
work.
and planning commission and council.
Very good job, Liz.
You're welcome. I'll pass that on to planning commission. Thank you for your support as well, and for all the reading you've done along the way.
Moving on to review and discuss draft adult use cannabis ordinance. Elizabeth again.
Alright, so I forwarded you guys a lot of websites, just to bring yourselves to be familiar with the topic. I think one of the references that is most useful to us is the Office of Cannabis Management, a guide for local governments on adult use cannabis, kind of breaks it down. So we had a practice round on this topic kind of already with the low dose hemp. So I'm gonna kind of use the model ordinance that the Office of Cannabis Management put out and kind of assume or template it with how the low dose stuff was treated. Like, there's a lot of similarities there. Just as a starting point, and then we can like break things down from there. So if you look in the guide, there's many different types of licenses that the state is going to issue. So the city's role is not to issue licenses, but essentially the city still gets to give a permission to register with the state. And we have options with that. We could assign that duty to the county if we wanted to. And still hold our own ordinance at the same time. So one of the decisions you guys have to make today is, do you want the county to be, for, making these, certificate of the registrations, or do you want us to? And that's within the ordinance as well. But the city can have an ordinance, but we cannot have licenses that determines the time, place, and manner in which these operations are had. One of the things, my proposal is to do something similar to what we did with the low-dose hemp edibles. What we titled our cannabinoid product retail license ordinance. To regulate it within the zoning ordinance. Which zoning districts are we allowing each type of these activities in? And then adopt an ordinance outside of it.
Can I ask a question about
Yeah.
that? So there are 13 license types. Some aren't physical locations, like a transporter. It's something the state issues, but many are physical facilities, whether they be a growing facility, retail, whatever in between. Do we need to address each of those types of licenses in our ordinance
Yes and no.
codes? Okay.
So if you look at all of these types of licenses, it kind of breaks it down into a combination of any of these, or an individual of any of these, but it's like essentially gonna be a retailer, a cultivator, or a manufacturer. Generally speaking, cultivation will usually by default, like if we didn't make any special, if we didn't address it at all, it would automatically fall under wherever agricultural use is allowed within the zoning ordinance. So, we also have, manufacturing. That will kind of by default fall within, where manufacturing is allowed, which is in our industrial park. So just like King Kine came in, and that was a good fit for that. But that was cultivation actually, so that was indoor cultivation. So, but anyways, other manufacturing of cannabis would fall under the industrial zoning district. And then there's retail, which we decided last time we're gonna leave in the downtown commercial zoning district. So a lot of these licenses are a combination of, some of these, or just individually. So to simplify it, we do that. So I would propose, and I'll come up with a solid a detailed recommendation. But I would propose to add these in some way, shape, or form under conditional use under the most appropriate zoning districts. For something like the mezzo business and micro business allows for to cultivate, manufacture, and sales. All three of those don't have to happen on the same property. So they can have a mezzo business license. We can permit them in the downtown commercial zoning district. But they can actually have their manufacturing and cultivation in other places. So you really break it down into what they're asking for, what are they asking to do on that property? Because if they were asking to, say, do manufacturing and cultivation in the downtown commercial zoning district, those are not allowed uses within that downtown commercial zoning district, but that doesn't necessarily mean they can't hold that license, because that license is through the state. So what they're asking to do on the property is that permissible via the zoning district. So I'll have a recommendation on where all of these licenses fall within the zoning district. I feel pretty confident in that.
Before I forget, in case my tenure runs out before I have a chance to speak on it, can you go back to what I would refer to as the gatekeeper issue of who gives the approval to apply with the state for the license? So can you explain that again? It was between the city or the county. We can either turn it over to the county or we can take care of it ourselves. Is that correct? Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, we've got options, so I just read it here, or it's in the, I
Because right now, I think that's the more pressing issue to me at this point, because we're making a decision, we're gonna pass that decision off to the county to say that these people can apply with the state for their license, right? Or we can leave it up to us here at the city level, you know, closer to the people that we're responsible to, the people that voted us in, the people that are paying their taxes. So, like I said, in case I don't get a chance, right now I would like to express my opinion on that issue, and that should definitely come through the council first. That should be a city decision of whether they're gonna give them permission to apply to the state. So I would like us to do that when the time comes.
Say, I have a general question about the licensing procedure. Is the person that is applying for the license, how do we know that they're qualified and have, you know, the knowledge of this business, what they're selling to the consumers? Is there any kind of a screening process or a training program for retailers to know what they're selling? I mean, it's because there's different grades of things and, you know, different types of products that Aurora mentioned here, the edibles and the flowers and all of that. You know, okay, I'll tell you, I've had an opportunity to visit dispensaries in Colorado, and those retail kids know the product. And so, you know, to just give a license to somebody that say, okay, open up your shop, we don't know if they have knowledge of, you know, what they're selling to the consumers. Is that addressed anywhere, or?
Or can you say when training for the actual applicant or operators?
Yeah.
Or how do we know they're doing it right? So, I think the state licensing covers a lot of that.
Okay,
I'm
yes?
correct.
Yeah, you do, you have to, it's part of your application, it's one of the like 20 things you have to submit is how everyone's trained, what their training is, and you, in the Office of Cannabis Management vets, you know, all these different criteria to determine whether or not you can even get in to approval, and then they've changed a lot of it now too, where a lot of the licenses are gonna be a lottery system. So if you get through their approval process and there's 50 licenses and 500 people apply, it's gonna be a draw out of the hat of those people that get through that initial phase with everything. And it's it's like a book of that city ordinances that you have to basically submit for your application. It's a law.
So Buck, let me just continue on that and ask a question. The experts are in the state.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
called the Office of Cannabis Management. It's one of those links Elizabeth mentioned earlier. Is like that's the in there, and they have basically everyone's on there except they still have like an interim director.
Right.
That's the one position they're having trouble.
So we don't have experts here in the city of Taylor's Falls, and the county of Chisago County doesn't have experts either.
No, it's all at the state. Everything goes through the state.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going back to the city or the county to make the decision, a green light or red light to the state, and then the state takes over.
No, you actually apply through the state,
Right.
and if the city doesn't have something set up, so like let's say this doesn't all get set up before January 1st and someone applies with the city or the state, if the state comes to the city and the city doesn't have anything ready, the state's gonna issue a license based on their decisions and not, they don't care what the city says if the city doesn't have these like ordinances in place, because then they're just gonna say, well, I guess there's no limits or time that can be open at any time, you know. And so it's kind of, you have to get approval from the state, but then cities and counties, you still have to work within all their ordinances.
Right,
that
okay.
open
Okay,
and
so-
in their zoning districts. And
They apply to the state,
Yep,
and then the state notifies the city that they've received an application for a
yep,
license.
and then they wanna know, is this application compliant with everything you have? And if they don't hear
Okay.
anything
That makes
within
sense.
30 days, they can just
Okay.
approve it without that.
Right, and
But
that's what we
they
said,
don't
the
want to do
certificate
that, they
registration.
want,
Okay, so it's part of the process.
yeah, they really want the city to
Okay,
be
good.
involved with it too, it sounds like, where
And
they're
it
like,
goes back and forth.
yeah,
Twice.
yep, and it goes back to
State,
them, and then the city, and then the
state.
state again.
Yeah. But we still have that option, you know, between the county and the city. You were
Right, we
you
can
mentioned
then-
in the ordinance
we-
itself.
Yeah,
Okay.
I wanted to throw that out there as an option, based on how the last one went, I would, expect probably the city to adopt their own ordinance
Yeah, and I guess all I'm saying is the more control we can keep here close to the people, to the city that we work, that we live in, that the people are responsible to, then we should take advantage of that whenever it comes up. That's my only point then.
Page 114 of our, of our packet goes through the numerous steps in pretty good high-level detail.
What guide page is that?
Guide page 8.
Get that on that one too. Yeah, so that essentially breaks down the process, Troy, on page.
Okay,
eight there.
thank you.
And that one is for the pre-approval people, so there's those people who got to apply already, and then the general pool will be after in 2025.
But it would follow a similar.
Yeah, it'll be basically the same thing.
So if we don't have, do we have any more general questions before we go on to a little more specific ones? I'd like to look at the actual model ordinance and go through where the city has options, optional here, optional there. One thing that I hope is being discussed at the state, is according to Minnesota's cannabis law, a local unit of government has 30 days to respond to the request, which, I think there's a little pushback from local municipalities because a lot of them are doing this conditional use permit process, and between applying for the permit, public hearing, and when the city council date lands, sometimes it's over 30 days, and I think that's why our conditional use permit process is at 60 days. Not 30, it's over 30. So hopefully that changes, because that could be a little.
Can I ask what page you're on, where you reading that?
Page 15 of the guide.
And page one of the packet? Okay, that's right, got it.
I didn't reprint this, I printed the packet for myself, so.
121.
Thank you.
So, I guess it's not a decision for the council to make, but I just wanted to bring aware that that could be a problem.
And I think that's just for you to respond. I don't think that's for you to vote and go through the condition. I think that's just, you have to get back to them in 30 days. Like, that doesn't mean you have to approve the,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So
It just
it's
says it's 30 days to
acknowledged as
respond to the
in-
request.
Respond not with a decision,
Correct, just respond to the request.
just like we've received the application.
Right.
Yeah, and just,
Okay,
yeah, you have
that's,
30 days to kind of like start that conversation, I think.
okay, so that's been
It's
clarified.
Yeah.
not a decision, you just acknowledge receipt of that and you apply for
Oh, okay, that's a game changer, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to just read two sentences from here because I think they're pretty straightforward right at the beginning. I'm on page 121 of the packet, page 15 of the document. Local governments, this is how it starts out. Local governments play a critical role in the licensing process, serving as a near final approval check on cannabis businesses nearing the awarding of a state license for operations. So that's our critical role as local governments, to play, serving as a near final approval check. And then the first sentence on under 3, right under there, the local certification of zoning compliance. Following the OCM's vetting process, local governments must certify that the applicant with preliminary approval has achieved compliance with local zoning ordinances prior to the license issue. So that's kind of what you were trying to explain to me and everybody else, that's part of it. So anyway, that's our role, that's what the state has determined to be our role, to incorporate that in our ordinances, so we can fulfill our responsibility of being a near final approval check on the cannabis business.
Good. So if you go to the model ordinance, I have a few stars on mine I'd like to bring up, but essentially the red,
Page, please.
129.
129, yep. If you, the red are the notes to us as municipalities, putting everything in English. Here's our options, here's some reasons why to do stuff. So I would follow the red.
And the county just had,
They just adopted
Yeah.
it.
they just adopted, okay.
And the county is, limiting 5 licenses within the county. However, it depends on the jurisdiction and if you selected the county to do your registrations or not, or an ordinance or not. If Taylor's Falls, I'm just gonna use the number 1, allows 1 retailer within the city, that 1 can be counted towards their 5 total. However, if there's already 5 total within the county and the city decides to do their own ordinance and allow 1, that 6th one could exist. Got that nailed down. Okay.
So wherever the county has jurisdiction,
Yes
they're
and
gonna
no.
approve up to 5. They wouldn't have, if we chose to do it ourselves, they wouldn't have jurisdiction over us. We could do 5 ourselves if we wanted to.
That's the way I understand it.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, and you decide whether you want to give your authority to the county or to keep it local, like you keep talking.
So, if we start on page 129, if it goes through administration authority, that's pretty straightforward. Troy's already, on page 130, where it says optional, that's where we're deciding, do we want the county to be involved at all? I'm thinking, the answer's gonna be no, but I better ask.
That was just my opinion. So-
I think it's gonna be I think it's a common opinion.
Okay.
It's a great question. I just assumed we would have our own.
Yeah. Yeah, own ordinance and whatever the process is. So I guess I just learned this by reading this today. We could have our own ordinance, but have the county actually do the certification for registration, like the dirty paperwork. Maybe I could start it, and if I don't like it, we can ask the county to do it. So I guess I don't see what the benefit is. It seems cleaner just to do everything ourselves,
Yeah.
I think. So that would be my recommendation, is if we're gonna do this, let's do all of it. So that's just a point of discussion. Page 131, registration of cannabis businesses. Okay, this is where we talk about, we can, just like we did with the other one, we can put buffers in place. They're not required.
I'm sorry, which one are you talking about? I was just reading that.
This has gotta be more exciting, doesn't it? Page 131, the section 2, registration of cannabis business.
Okay.
Or wait, is this one? It says a city or town can adopt specific requirements regarding zoning, buffers, and use in public spaces, provided said requirements are not in conflict with an ordinance adopted under the delegated authority granted to the county or the state, for that matter. Maybe there's 2 spots for buffers. Just a second. There's registration costs to discuss as well.
I think 136 might be what you're looking for.
Yeah. I don't know why I started that. Maybe I started.
For like the buffers and stuff, it's on, or
Oh,
it's
okay.
on 135, it's at the end, like section 3.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna, oh yeah, we'll skip that then. We'll go in order. Okay, so fees. So I guess that was just an overview of the section, which probably includes the buffers and fees. So I guess we'll start with fees. I don't know if you want to discuss it today or not, but if you go to 2.3, an initial retail registration fee shall not exceed $500 or half the amount of the initial state license, which we don't know if it is or not, right? So,
Just depends on the license you're applying for. So they'd have all those fees already set up too. It's just
okay,
like
gotcha.
cultivators are different than all the, it's all different.
Right, so we'd have to decide, do we wanna go with half the license fee or a lesser fraction of that license fee, or we want it to be, static, do we want it to be $500, $200, $100? It's a discussion you guys get to have, on how much to charge for these licenses, so that's just where that information goes. Do you wanna discuss that today or another day?
Well, don't we
Maybe
need to
just
know
do some
what,
research on it?
we don't, we know, need to know what the initial state fee is gonna be first, before we.
So they
discuss it?
have those, so
Yeah,
that's
almost
where
all of them
all
are,
of those have different fees.
and almost all of them would, you would, like, the way it says, shall not exceed 500 or half, almost all of them would be the 500, because almost every single one is much more than that
Hmm.
for the half
Oh,
price of the licensing is like 500. And I think there's a couple that are lower, like 200 or 300 to apply, but most of them are thousands, so it would.
so for simplicity purposes, you probably recommend the static.
Well, the 500,
So we
you
have
won't
to
be
do it
able
on
to
a
probably
case by
charge
case
half,
basis.
because like the license, like a retail license is $10,000, so half of that's 5,000, and that exceeds 500 by.
Okay, so whichever is less.
I think that's how it's written, yeah, whichever is less, you have to.
Oh,
What happens if we make the initial retail registration fee 501?
We can't, right?
we'd be.
Well, I know, I'm just wondering, is there a penalty built in there somewhere, or what
I
happens?
guess you would just be passing something that violates Minnesota statute 342.11.
Okay, and
I don't
then,
know. Just like if you passed anything that violates the
Okay.
state
And then we
statute,
all go to
I'm sure
jail.
it'll say.
oh, really? Just throwing it out there.
But, yeah, we should try to be in compliance with the state. Okay, so I guess, if we wanna look at what those fees are, or if anybody wants to give me a solid opinion on what that should be, either email it to me, or we'll definitely have to discuss it during the next council meeting, but I just wanted to get, flag it as something you're gonna have to make a decision on.
Well, the fees they have listed here don't seem exorbitant,
Right.
so I keep it simple.
The renewal's a little higher though. The renewal retail registration shall not exceed 1,000 for
Which
half
is-
the amount for the renewal. And I don't think the city's done anything at $1,000 yet, so.
Liquor is
Liquor
close.
Is it?
At 1,800 for.
Yeah, it's a full
Mhm.
on, full on sale.
Okay. So,
So that's actually a little low,
it is.
but
Okay.
that's the law.
So, yeah.
Yeah, well, can I, good point.
Sorry.
So when do we have to have something in place?
December
Right.
9th, or no, before January.
Before June first?
Well, let me look at the publication date.
If we don't have it in place before January first, someone would consider, we don't care, we can put this anywhere.
Yeah,
I mean,
We have to have
okay.
something. yeah.
You wouldn't want to, but
yeah, and the state still hasn't issued a license to anyone, so they haven't picked any of these early applications. They probably will pretty soon into 2025, or maybe even before the year's over.
right.
So there may be some early people who could just, yeah, they could come here January 1st.
And there's,
I thought I read somewhere that they didn't anticipate issuing any licenses until like mid-January.
They probably won't, yeah, because it's, like I said, they haven't even gone through they haven't even done the lottery draw or anything.
Our goal is by January 1st to have this
Okay.
published, and we could always change it to, so we should have something in place by January 1st, so. And this is our really first time we're looking at it in detail. I mean, I think we've had other meetings where there was a lot of questions and then research in the background, so. But I kind of want to give you guys an update on some of these sections and get your feedback on which direction, so that way I can draft, a draft that could potentially be passed in agreement, so. One thing I'm running into is we have the Low-Dose Cannabis Product Retail, licensing with the recommendation on it, but do we wanna treat, when we are looking at probably limiting the amount of licenses, you know, I'm assuming we're gonna wanna treat the low dose different than the high dose. So we wanna try to keep our existing ordinance and tweak it to be in compliance with the new laws? Or do we wanna completely repeal it and build something new into this new ordinance? So I'll have a recommendation on that, but we're looking at, our, ordinance that we just did is going to be technically not allowed because we're not allowed to charge a fee for license, we're not allowed to license it. So, kind of changing that to a registration process instead of a licensing, I think is kind of that loophole around it. So I'll work on those details, but that is definitely something we would be looking at doing too, is an amendment to the other ordinance to be in compliance with the new state laws as well. How many retail establishments do you want within the city?
So on that point, did I read it correctly? If we said we only want to allow one, but we also decided to have a municipal retail, we would still have to allow one other. Because the municipal retail wouldn't affect the number of licenses.
Yep.
So I think
Okay.
so.
Yep.
And we can't say zero
Yep, so.
unless we defer to the county.
Correct, yeah. And then you still can't say zero, cause then they could still have one here to the county, I think.
They could still what?
We could
If
only
you
say
said zero, I think, cause the county could still approve someone here. So you can't say no unless the county hits that 5 license limit, then you could,
Be a game.
yeah.
But Taylor's Falls is gonna be kind of a higher spot for popularity for requests because we are on the river at the border.
We're back to local control again.
Right. Buffers. 135, section 3 requirements for cannabis businesses. So again, we can regulate the time, place, and manner. One of those tools is buffers. You guys remember all the discussions we had about the old schoolhouse next to the old jail? A decision's gonna have to be made on whether to include that in buffers or not. So just to get your brains moving on that topic again. Because the old jail's for sale. We also have, I forget the address, but there's another, building downtown that's for sale, and I actually had a call inquiring about that. So we might have multiple people interested in setting up dispensaries within the downtown zoning district, so.
So I just throw out a little anecdote similar to Larry's. My wife and I went to the UP about a month ago, I think, and we were in a town called Munising, and the population is about 2,000 from what we understood, but they have a huge summer crowd there, and I would imagine the town size doubles in the summer. But they approved 4 licenses, and today only 2 of them are operational. The other 2 went out of business. And we did go in one just to see what it was like, and gosh, it was just perfect. It was clean, it was well-maintained, it was secure. I mean, you wouldn't, if they didn't have the sign out front, you wouldn't even know what the building was. I was impressed, but they approved 4, and only 2 are left. And they're in the middle of nowhere. I mean, they're a long ways from anywhere there.
So we're anticipating a groundswell for customers coming to Taylor's Falls
I don't know,
from across the border maybe?
that's what other people say.
Yes.
Most likely, yeah. Like if you go to those towns in Michigan, Ironwood, card, a dispensary is from Wisconsin or Minnesota.
And it may be short-lived. I mean,
Yeah, like you said, there's a lot of that, there's a lot of turnover in this industry, yeah.
Wisconsin might,
Right,
eventually it's,
they're in an island, they have Illinois, Minnesota, they're losing untold amounts of tax revenue. It's unbelievable.
I think I've said this before, I'll say it again, I'm not in favor of one of anything, really. You don't have any competition. My personal preference would be a minimum of 2.
Let them fight it out.
That's the way it works,
That's right.
free enterprise.
So I'll probably be doing something similar that I did with the short-term rental licensing ordinance. I'm gonna have a live lab, and I'm gonna have council and planning commission both meet as much as possible, have the discussions, have the proposed text, and then, highlight the changes from one to another. And if you guys have any ideas outside of the ordinance, email them to me, please, and I will then highlight it as an idea to be discussed at the next meeting. Hopefully, after, between planning commission meetings and city council meetings, we'll come up with a final draft or something that's short-term rental, where you guys get to vote on those last little tweaks, and I'll draft all of the paperwork. We're gonna have so many motions to make, Tim, especially because we're gonna have so essentially, we're gonna have a zoning ordinance amendment, which has its own very specific processes and documentation that needs to be done, very time consuming. We're gonna be adopting a new, adult use cannabis ordinance and amending an existing handgun product ordinance, probably. So, it's a lot. So I just need everybody to be focused.
Would it make any sense to have planning commission and city council meet for a workshop?
Yep.
Where you can just hash it all out at once. I don't know, of course, that's up to everybody's schedules, but I would throw that out there.
Yeah, they will do more workshop style planning commission meetings,
That'd be fine.
and then I encourage council to attend. And we always post on those planning commission meetings that a quorum of council may be present, so I guess I know it's Thanksgiving and Christmas and hunting, but we got homework.
Well, if we go with this template, which I have to believe is pretty thoroughly vetted, we don't need to
Yeah.
recreate the wheel, so hopefully we won't have to spend as much time as we did
Right,
the logos.
right.
Yeah.
And our deadline again for this, drop dead, definitely no later than,
I think I was aiming for the December 9th meeting, because if we go to the second one, I don't have time.
what's the state telling us? What's our deadline?
The first, right?
January 1st, okay, thank you.
I have a question on the proposed template here. It mentions a temporary event.
Mhm.
What is that?
So,
It's,
the city can't prohibit any temporary events, cannabis.
But it mentions a cannabis event.
Yeah,
So,
So like right now, the one in Minnesota, it's called the Legacy Cup, so it's like cannabis businesses come and anyone who's interested in it, and they have, it's a whole thing for a weekend. Yeah.
So what if we had a cannabis event at a short-term rental?
they can come to council. Based on how you
Solve that.
voted.
are they like a trade show? Or is it?
Yeah, or like
an art
anybody
fair?
could do it, yeah, or like if there's gonna be a little concert and you wanna have like cannabis stuff, I think there too, you have to kinda go through that event planner thing, or like any
Like a
music.
craft brewery thing, like.
Yeah, like a music festival has to, if they wanna have cannabis offered there, I think they have to get one of these event people to do that, yeah.
Good.
Could they be held in a park? Because we wouldn't allow,
I think you still have to maybe comply with some of the ordinance that you have
All other
established, yeah.
ordinances still apply, however, you cannot prohibit it because it's cannabis related.
I'm just trying to think reasonably in my mind what would happen.
See them out there? You see them walking around.
In the short-term rental.
Is there really a mouse?
Yeah.
Guys, there's too many snacks.
Probably follow the
Okay. Well, let Kevin know about that.
Feed up, everyone.
I also learned today, so like I mentioned, there's retail, cultivation, and manufacturing. You cannot prohibit any of them, and you can only limit retail. You can't limit how many cultivation facilities you have. You can't limit how many manufacturing facilities you have. You can put regulation on them, but you can't prohibit them or limit them.
Here, he's right
Is he
here.
in there? Take a mouse. Right underneath your
He's
chair.
right
Wants to
there.
see everybody.
Likes me.
But it's kind of cute.
public comment.
Alright.
Give them some camera time.
I was cleaning up houses today on
You gotta
the vehicle.
go out the mouse.
Maybe get it out the door.
Where is he?
He's over here now.
He's
That's
over
too late.
here.
That might be.
He's
He
trying to
can
get out.
probably fit under the door.
Yeah, little
Oh,
guy.
I missed.
There he goes.
Put them in your hat.
We don't want any guys out there.
Close the door, he can stay up there.
Oh, anyway.
We're gonna make the news, mouse disrupts. We need a mouse ordinance. Okay, I don't have much more on the cannabis topic, but, if you have any input for me, please forward it.
Your process worked good for like short-term rentals, asking us specifically to provide comment. And I really like that. And I think with the workshop, we could hash this out pretty quickly.
And I think it's really love. Okay,
And Fritz would have to, I would want Fritz at the workshop.
okay.
Are we done for now?
With that one, I think I'm next though.
You are next. With that, we're gonna move on to new business. Discuss maximum impervious surface requirements in the industrial zoning district. And it's Elizabeth.
Okay, so this topic would usually go through planning commission first, but since First Iron Works is trying to scoot as fast as possible, I wanted to kind of get a feel of where you guys are at. So, their First Iron Works design in the industrial park, I just reviewed their filling grading permit plans. Their impervious surfaces are proposed at 81%, which is over the 75% threshold within the zoning ordinance. So since it's within the zoning ordinance, there's specific processes that have to be done. It's not like a, easy waiver. There's a variance process, so he could, so I gave him his options. So he could comply with the existing zoning ordinance. He has the right to apply for a variance, which then you guys, I have resources now. We would do a training for variance processes, and I'll email you the details to kind of wrap this up more quickly, but from a staff evaluation standpoint, I'm not seeing that he would meet the criteria, but it is the applicant's responsibility to prove that they meet the criteria. So there's 3 criteria that they absolutely have to meet for an ordinance to be granted. So I would have a say, I would say, if I thought that they were meeting that criteria, each of you would determine if they meet the criteria, but there's chances.
The criteria for a variance?
Yeah, criteria for variance. And I can't say, I think it would be denied, or I think it would be approved. But you kind of guide people on, do you think this meets this requirement or not? So there's a chance that that could be denied or approved. His other option is to apply for an amendment to the zoning ordinance, and I consulted with TJ Bolton Mink. He's seen impervious surface regulations in industrial zoning districts between up to like 80%, rarely up to 85%. So to kind of keep in line with what's normal, you could be, I would maybe recommend a zoning ordinance amendment to like 80% and have them mitigate back down that 1%. It's up to him. I think it's his choice on what he wants to bring forward to you guys. But I just wanted to let you know that this is coming, because I know we all very much support him, but we can't just say, yep, I think it's okay. We have to go through the processes, and the process are looking like potentially an ordinance amendment or variance. So if you have any questions for me, let me know.
Is this holding him up?
That's not what's holding him up right now, but
Okay.
could be, so I talked to him because he wanted to break ground already,
Yep.
but they're running into some architectural design hurdles with their engineer, but they wanted to at least do some filling and grading, so we're actually working on approving their filling and grading permit right now. So they'll need filling and grading, and then they'll need a site plan review that comes to council, which should be fairly easy because we've already seen his general plan. But a site plan review is a specific process within the zoning ordinance, has all those bullets, things you have to explain, or reports for me to write, paperwork. So he hasn't submitted his site plan review. If he wants to not comply with the 75% impervious surfaces, he's gonna have either a variance or a zoning ordinance amendment to go to, and all three of those have to go through planning commission and city council.
Public hearing.
And a public hearing. So, that process is between a month or two. So provided it's November and he's not dead set on starting, he's now leaning towards potentially doing it in the spring and just being less rushed. Otherwise, we're gonna have to be scooting on some of those, but I did wanna bring that to your attention that, that's happening.
Did he tell you specifically that he could not meet the 75% impervious surface requirement? Is that the correct percentage? Did he tell you he can't meet that? What is our ordinance asking? Define can't?
Yeah,
What did he
he
tell
could
you?
redesign, but in what way would that adversely affect him? I don't know, I guess we'd have to ask him.
Well, no, what requirement are we putting on him for impervious surfaces? What is our requirement? What's our percentage?
75%.
Okay, and did he say that he could not do that?
He said he did not want to try to do that if there was another legal option. So I gave him his options.
Oh, okay. Okay, and so then we'll know.
So
He-
75%.
75% or variance.
He said he really needs to maximize the space,
Right,
Which is understandable.
which is understandable, so.
but this 75%, is that for our industrial zoning, or is that for the whole city?
Our industrial zoning is.
Okay.
So if we, regardless of the percent, he's still gotta have his surface water mitigation plan that would provide enough.
Yeah,
funding
there's
for
still
the water.
some management of the runoff
Yeah, okay.
outside of that threshold.
Okay.
Because when you're looking at impervious surfaces, you're looking at catching the runoff, yes, but it's also an aesthetic thing. But the place is gonna be surrounded by a fence.
What's, compared to residential, what's a residential? 50?
What is it? 25? I have to look.
Okay.
I think it depends on the zoning district, but, because residential covers different zoning districts, so whether it's, in the St. Croix River, residential, small town residential, topics going to planning commission, because if you look in the accessory buildings section, I think the maximum is 25% for small town, but if you go to the small town zoning district, it doesn't say that at all. So what is the intention? Is it only in effect when you're building accessory building, you gotta fix that?
So you'll keep us posted?
Yeah.
Right, any more?
No.
Larry?
No, I'm good.
Okay, let's move on to Highway 8 Bridge Light Replacement. Tim?
Yeah, similar to the semaphores on Highway 8 and 95, the city is responsible for the lights across the bridge, at least the heads. We have one light out now. They're gonna have to close a lane of traffic to replace it. So we're recommending doing both lamps on the, I believe it was the north side now, but by 4 fixtures, 4 light fixtures, so we can do the eastbound lane next year, or when one goes out over there. They're LED, so they'll last a long time, provide better illumination. So we're recommending moving forward with what Kevin has proposed. There is, of the budget for streetlights, we still have a little over $9,100 positive budget balance there. So we do have the funds budgeted for it.
This Forest Lake contracting, is this for one, or what needs to be replaced? What is out?
So we could just replace a light bulb,
Okay.
but we're probably gonna have to do that repeatedly.
How much would that cost?
I have no idea. They'd still have to go through the lane closure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, certainly a bulb is a lot cheaper than a new head, an LED head. But for the long term, it's the right thing to do, is to move to LED. We just won't have to deal with it in the foreseeable future. It's a busy road. It's shutting lanes of traffic down every time we have to do this. So that's what we talked about as the best way forward to do it.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
we keep the 2 heads on the shelf and
Right.
replace them either when one of the other lamps went out or on a scheduled basis.
Right. Okay.
So the traffic control for high-speed lane closure, is that equipment that they set up, or?
Staff and barricades, flagmen.
What does that cost us, the city? If we replace the bulb, for
That's
example,
$990
for
traffic control.
traffic control, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see it, sorry, thank you.
Yeah, so there are 4 heads, the time to replace the 2 heads, and then the lane closure this time. So all we would pay for next time would be the lane closure and the labor.
Well, we gotta have lights on the bridge, and we gotta take care of it for the long term, rather than, keep going to change light bulbs out. So, it makes sense to do this, it's in the budget, got my approval.
So if I have this correctly, let's say a light bulb is $10, we would pay $1,010, right? Because we have to pay for the
The labor.
labor, or no,
It'd be,
the labor and lane closure.
probably be a little less labor, because it'll
Oh,
only
I
be 1
see.
head.
Because they're gonna change the actual fixture up on top there. Can I have a motion?
I was gonna say I should make a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. To approve the proposal provided by Public Works.
Any more discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Festival update, Carol.
Well, I'll try to make this fast. So this year is the 40th anniversary of the Lighting Festival. So a lot of history that's gone into it. We've chosen as our theme the Ruby because that's the 40th anniversary. And so the theme is Gem of the Valley. And it'll be very similar to the previous years. A lot of 3 days, very full days. We have a committee of, there are 12 of us that have been working on this and have a few new things that we're adding. We're adding a swap or a shop crawl. So really trying to encourage business downtown, and if people buy something, their name goes into a drawing for a gift card. The parade is on Friday night. There's a lot going on all day Friday, and we just really want to encourage people to come early and be in our city and spend money. And then Saturday is a full day with starting with a free flapjack breakfast and then the traditional wassail party craft fair. There's the medallion hunt. There's the open house is down on Bench Street. It's where Alyssa Otten lives now. That's the house. And the Christmas at the Folsom House is open. On Saturday, there's the Ecumenical Vespers service at the Methodist Church, and then 6:30 is family bingo. Sunday is the Folsom House, and Alyssa's house is open, and then at 1:30 there's the Green Fire Irish Dancers, and 3 o'clock is the winter concert by the St. Croix Valley Orchestra, also at the Methodist Church. So lots going on, and we just want to say thank you to the city for your support of this. One of the concerns that we have spent quite a bit of time discussing is safety. With having so many people in town, it's at night, and you never know what the weather's going to be. If it's going to be icy like it was last year, and you couldn't get up the hill and things like that. We invited Kevin to come to our meeting just to kind of talk through different scenarios, and definitely if there's ice, we will close, or not we, but I think that as the council decided that Government Street would be closed. Is it Government Street that goes in front of the community center where last year cars were sliding down backwards? So we don't want that to happen this year. And then also just with the parade, we would like to have volunteers to help us, like with crossing. I know last year Tim and Kevin were at Romaine's and just helping, because before the parade, before 95 is closed, there's a lot of traffic coming through and people are going across the street to get the best place and things like that. So I'm checking with the Lions to see if they can help, checking with other groups to see if we can just have guards at the crossing guards just to help with our safety there. Santa will be behind with August, so anybody that's on the west side of the street after the parade will need to get across the street too. So just be mindful of that, and if you're down there and can help too, we'd appreciate that. That's probably about it. It's going to be a very busy weekend, but it'll be a fun weekend. Oh, and then just one other thing. We didn't select a royal lady this year. What we wanted to do was honor previous royal ladies. And so I think at this point we have about 10 previous ladies that are either going to ride in the cars or else walk in the parade. Just to say thank you for all you've done for the year, throughout the years for Lighting Festival, and just recognizing that. So, yeah, any questions or?
I have a question. How did you do all this and run for city council at the same time?
I don't know. I kind of lost my brain. Yeah. Well, I've got a good team.
Well, thank you.
Is that the
Thank
right
you for all
answer?
your work. Yes, that's the right answer. It's all
Yes.
Thank you very much for
Yeah,
all your work.
thank you. And I'll post this up here so everybody knows. There's also the website, so if you have any questions, lightingfestival.com.
Is there an ornament?
Pardon?
Is there an ornament?
Oh, yes, there is. It's a beautiful ornament.
Okay.
That will probably, I think something is being sent to you, I'm not sure. Yeah, pictures. It's, with August has made it, and it has rubies on it, so, well, they're not really rubies, but they look like rubies.
There you go.
Yeah,
It's available now?
yeah, they're downtown.
Okay.
Yeah,
$12.
$12, 2 for 20. I always want to say 2 for 10.
Carol, as long as you're here, could
Yep.
I request that we move the agenda around and talk about the donation?
Yep, while she's here.
Oh, sure.
That's one of the next things, is approval of lighting festival donation of $1,000.
So I'll make the motion, we open discussion on the approval of lighting festival donation.
I'll second.
I had a question. Is the lighting festival a nonprofit? It is, so it's like, it's a,
I don't know if we're officially a nonprofit, but we raise our own funds and,
I never thought about it before.
yeah. So our biggest fundraisers are donations from the businesses, and then bingo. And then the houses usually bring in a couple $100. So far, we've been able to, break even every year. And this year, I just appreciate Kevin. He just said, why do you guys buy new lights every year? And it was because when workers took them down, they cut them down because that was the easiest. And he said, no, he said, I will be saving them for you. So hopefully they'll work more than 1 year.
Okay.
So that'll be a savings.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I just have some general, I guess, items or information. So the approved budget for 2024 included a $500 donation or transfer donation to the lighting festival. I think that had been the case in previous years. I'm not 100% sure. We had $1,500 for Wanigan Days and $500 for the lighting festival. In 2025, we increased that a bit. So we'll have a little, if we approve it that way for our final budget, we'll have a little more work. So similar to the Wanigan Days, what I would suggest we do or recommend we do is approve $1,000, but take 500 of it from our general fund and 500 from the charitable gambling fund. You can use those for festivals. So what we do is authorize Michelle to cut a check to Taylor's Falls Lighting Festival, I assume, for $1,000, and it would just be two different sources for that fund. It's 500 from general fund and 500 from charitable gambling.
All right. Any other discussion? Sounds good to me.
Yep.
It's a great event.
Yep, great event.
I will read the, can I read the motion this time? There it is.
Sure.
I will make a motion that a donation to the Taylor's Falls Lighting Festival in the amount of $1,000 be made.
Second.
So I would just amend that to include the funding sources, so it's clear in the minutes for Michelle.
Sure. $500 from charitable gambling
Correct.
and $500 from the general fund, is that correct?
Correct, and that would, and I can talk to Michelle, but it's under council, under the council department, if you will.
All right. Any more discussion?
No.
Okay,
Thanks, Roger.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for all the work you've done. And then, one last item, Falls Chamber membership approval.
motion that we open discussion on the Falls Chamber of Commerce membership approval.
I'll second. Oh, sorry. I was reading.
All right.
I had received the application and information from Diane Nelson, who attended the meeting, and I know there's another local lady that attends as well. We had representation from the city at one time, not sure what position that was. I would myself do that at this point, unless there's a better representation, representative. And the membership is quite cheap, and I think we wanted to build that, that relationship with St. Croix, but also we want to get our recognition with that chamber to build more recognition along the river. So.
Do you know how long it's been since we were a member? You don't know?
I don't. There's a sticker on the window out here that says
Got a
we were
year
a
on it.
member at some time. I
Okay.
don't know if it has a year on it, but
Okay.
yeah.
It's not been the last two.
No, I can't remember
Yeah.
who represented it or when.
Okay.
Yeah, for $200, there's not much risk there. And we are trying to build a stronger relationship with St. Croix Falls, especially as it relates to Wanigan Days. And they're very interested in building that too.
No
so
date on the sticker.
I tend to think this
There's
would
no
be
date on the sticker.
advantageous and a good time to do it.
I agree.
Yeah, I fully support
Yep.
this.
I agree. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
And did someone else second the? I missed that.
I did, I was sleeping.
Okay.
Oh, that's right. You woke up for that.
Thank you.
All right. Any liaison or council member reports?
No,
Nope.
No?
Park and Rec is meeting next week. On Wednesday.
Okay. When did we say the next meeting was?
Our next meeting is December, well,
December 9th.
our regular council meeting is, well, you thought we'd have to have another in November yet.
Did,
So-
So that was driven by me kind of just for cannabis, so generally speaking, I think it should go before council and planning commission as much as possible from now until it's done. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm fine.
So another meeting in November, or no?
If you guys are, if you think it would be productive, I would have then a draft and like,
I wouldn't be able to be here.
Yeah, I'm going
which
to.
is okay because it, at least, we wouldn't be voting anything, but at least there would be, we need discussion moving forward.
I would be here either, so.
So Lee and Larry won't be here, would you be here, Tim?
As far as I know.
Troy, would you be here?
November what?
25th.
And I don't think it's the end of the world if we don't, as long as everybody's emailing me their input.
And we can always attend planning commission.
And attend, planning commission.
Yeah,
I mean, if there's an agenda to have on the
I
25th.
can't for the 25th.
Okay.
I mean, is it all dependent? Why is everybody looking at me? Is it all dependent on me or what?
No, we don't know what Brandon
I
can
think
do
it's,
yet.
Oh, okay.
is Brandon out that?
um,
We have Brandon's calendar. So it would be down
I think
to
he's here.
Tim and Brandon, so, I mean, I guess if we're down to two, I'd say just communicate and we won't have a meeting then.
Okay.
I'll hassle you via email.
Okay.
So then the next meetings we have is December 4th is truth and taxation.
Got it.
Okay.
And the 9th would be our regular council meeting.
Truth and taxation at 6 on the 4th.
yes,
Correct.
yes.
City council meeting at 6 on the 9th.
All right.
And that should be the only meeting for December, right? December 9th.
thank you to everybody for all the work on the budget. I mean, all the sacrifices that everybody made, and I'm gonna include, you know, staff, fire department, yes, Tim and all his work.
Thanks for your hard work, Tim, everybody.
Certainly.
You got a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So I'll second it.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So it's just gonna.
Top button, Sherry?
Nice work.
Yep, the red one.